All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our sixth leadership study as part of our 8 Steps to Your Leadership Rebuild. I'm Shreya Coet with CWLI. We are delighted to have Danna Vaughn talk with you on the topic of stretch today. She is going to be sharing her personal story of resilience and how she stretched but did not break. At any time you have questions or comments, feel free to use the chat box or raise your hand. Danna's gonna talk, but would love to hear from you, see your faces as she shares her journey with us. So I am going to go ahead and pass it over to Karen Estes next. She serves on our board of directors and so graciously recommended Danna for this topic. So I'm going to give her the honors of introducing her today. Try it one more time. Sorry.
Oh, I like to always start talking before I'm unmuted.
There we go.
Thank you for doing such an awesome job with our programs. I just want to thank you before I introduce Danna. I really appreciate all that you do for CWI. Yes. Hi, y'all. Karen Estes. I know lots of these faces, so it's so good to see you. It's my pleasure to introduce Danna to you today. I'm lucky enough to call her a friend of mine. I brought out my zoo cup. Oh, there it is, my zoo cup. You'll see why, just to honor Danna a little bit further. So here we go. Danna Vaughn started her career at the Chattanooga Police Department in 1994. She moved up the ranks to assistant chief, the first female to do so, and held that position for 6 years before retiring in January of this year. Danna worked in several capacities at different ranks through her 27-year career, including patrol, field training officer, training division, community services, including D.A.R.E and S.R.O, and also administration. Currently, she is pursuing an associate's degree in veterinary technology, which she referred to me as animal nursing. For those of you that were on the call earlier, you already got a glimpse of that. And her plan is to graduate in May of 2023. So without further ado, Danna Vaughn.
Thank you so much, Karen. And I see some familiar faces on here and I see some names. So thank you guys for offering me a chance to share my story. If I can help anybody out in any way, I'm glad to do so. Also, you'll notice I'm not in my police uniform anymore. I'm not sure what to think about that just yet, but I'm getting used to it. But I do want to share part of my journey in the police department up to administration, and what it took for me to realize that I was not as flexible as I needed to be, and it was almost debilitating, but it was certainly impeding my career. So I'll start with when I made rank of lieutenant, probably, gosh, it's probably been 15, 17 years ago. My boss offered me my dream job in the training division. I would go and be the commander down there and oversee all the new cadets that came in. And like I said, it was my dream job. It was one of the places that I wanted to be. So I worked down there for about 1.5 years. Obviously, we have disagreements because, that's what administrators do. They disagree and have discussions. But in about 1.5 years, I was approached and told that I was going to be involuntarily transferred to an administrative support position that I didn't ask for. And the way that works in the police department, as long as you were given a 14-day notice, you are subject to move wherever they need you in the department. So that went over like a lead balloon with me. I didn't get any warning. I didn't get any vibe that I was not doing a good job in training. I didn't get any of that, but I knew I had to be okay with that because that's the way our policy was written. If my boss wants to move me, he can move me. I don't have any, I can't fight that. But the people that know me know that didn't sit very well with me. And I I found myself so angry and so hurt and so offended. I just about couldn't function at work. I didn't even want to go to work anymore. And so I suffered for a while after that transfer. Didn't want to come to work. Now, I didn't necessarily want to quit my job because I couldn't. I was in past that place where I had too much time and I could quit. So as I was sitting at my desk, and I'll admit I was pouting bad, sitting at my desk one day, not doing police work or admin work, but scrolling through the news, I found a link to Chattanooga Women's Leadership Institute program called Women Mentoring Women. And nothing like that had ever caught my attention before. And I thought it was kind of weird that it did. But I went with, let's see what this is about. And I sent the link to my husband and I said, what do you think about me trying to participate in this? And he just said, I think where you are right now in your career, anything's going to help. So I got involved, and luckily enough, my immediate boss, I think he probably saw some kind of need for me to get a boost or a pick me up, and he signed off and gave me permission, and even partly paid for me to attend that series. And I do want to emphasize, in all this time, I was doing a lot of soul searching, a lot of trying to figure out, what's wrong with me? What happened? What did I do wrong in training? Why am I not a good supervisor? Why won't they tell me that I'm not a good supervisor? Why won't they tell me what I need to do differently? All that was brewing and stirring and just really, really causing me a lot of angst. But I enrolled in that leadership, in the Women Mentoring Women, and met some of the most amazing women that, in my little career in the male dominated field, I didn't even know existed. We don't have a strong female support within the police department. We never have. And I've had CWI in several times to try to strengthen that support. And it's just not there right now. But the support that I found in these women, I can honestly say, changed my life, changed my career path, changed my attitude. So all that to say, I feel like CWI gave me some guidance on learning how to flex instead of being that rigid, disciplined, this is black and this is white and you get no gray. I feel like they're the ones that led me through that journey through Women Mentoring Women. So I wanted to share a little bit about that and just ask if anybody, if you are a personality like me, which maybe, I hope you're not that bad, but I mean, it's not bad, it's just who we are. But if you have any questions along the way or thoughts, please go ahead and ask in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I just wanted to leave you guys with a few things that helped me learn and specifically came from the women in this organization. So I think the first thing that I had to do was to find myself. And when I say find, I mean really do a lot of soul searching, talking to other people that you trust, new friendships like I had during CWLI of women who had gone before me, that not necessarily in law enforcement, but they had been in those positions where they didn't necessarily think what had happened to them at work was right. So I started doing some intense soul searching, which included counseling. I'll just go ahead and be honest with you. because my self-confidence was probably at an all-time low at that particular time. I was up for promotion to captain, and I had heard through the grapevine that my boss had told some folks that he would, rot in hell before he promoted me. And I had people who were behind me to get promoted. They'd come by my office and joke with me and say, just go over there and tell him you're sorry so we can get this over with. I need to get promoted. And that just really, it really, really bothered me. So, like I said, through the Women Mentoring Women program, some hardcore counseling, and I want to share a favorite book of mine. And if you guys aren't familiar with this, I highly encourage it. Do you guys know about Who Moved My Cheese? So I keep this book by my Bible to remind me that when things don't go the way that I think they should go, or they don't go the way that I planned them, I need to learn to be flexible. And for me, in a personality like mine, it is a daily struggle. No joke. It is an intentional thought process. When something changes, it's an intentional thought process of, okay, it's not the end of the world. This is where you got to be flexible. This is where you've got to learn to bend a little bit. So I think through the Women Mentoring Women program and a lot of great friends, I have finally learned to at least acknowledge that I need to be a little bit flexible, but it still takes work on my part daily. So for the first thing I would suggest is just to try to find yourself, dig deep down and find out who you are. What do you want to do at your workplace? Do you want to advance? Are you good where you are? Do you want to go somewhere else? You just try to think on those things and figure out really what it is, what you want. And then this is I was going to tell Sheree, I didn't know if you want to throw up the slide or not. I'm giving you guys a little flex acronym that you guys can leave with. So the F is find yourself. The L is learn who you are, learn what you want, learn from the people around you. Don't be afraid to ask for help, or don't be afraid to ask for guidance or coaching or mentors. It was a little bit difficult for me, and I think CWLI came along at just the right time. Like I said, I didn't have female mentors in my workplace, and I'm not saying the men weren't good and they didn't help me get to where I was, but typically when I came to them with something like, oh, I'm not going to get promoted, you get the eyeball roll and say, hey, you just wait, your time's coming. And that wasn't really what I needed. So learn from those around you, and take in what they have to offer. We all know that you can use some things, and maybe you don't need to learn, or maybe you don't need to use everything, but just keep learning. Don't ever stop learning. And this was a shocker, that the empathy was a little bit of an eye opener for me. And you might wonder how this fits in. But for somebody like me who's so strict and is so by the book and disciplined, and it's black and it's white, often when change comes around, it for lack of a better word, freaks me out. But then I had to learn to look at where that change was coming from. Not necessarily how it was affecting me, but I had to learn, well, what caused the change? What happened? Why is this change going on? And just kind of put myself over on the other side from where the change was coming from. And this is something that I had to learn. And unfortunately, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this. I probably really didn't actually learn how to be empathetic until the last 10 years, probably. So that's been a big a big help to me, is learning, not necessarily, oh, I know how you feel, but just putting yourself in somebody else's shoes when those changes come around, and realizing that more often than not, people don't want to hurt you intentionally. More often than not, oftentimes there's something that comes with the change, something that we don't know about, and maybe we don't need to know about it. But the empathetic part of it was hard for me, and I put out to the side there that we should learn to embrace empathy. And I feel like I've learned that over the years, if we could all be a little bit more empathetic, I think it would just make our community a better place. And then the last X there is to just be the example. I criticize myself a lot for my leadership skills, because I don't feel like I'm like the other male leaders that I used to work with. But that's okay. You know, I can lead by my example, and that's kind of what I've tried to live by the past 10 years of my career. It's just to be the example. If you feel like you can't show somebody the way, or you can't encourage people to find a mentor, you be the example. You set the example. And that's part of my flex that I would like to leave with everybody today. But I would also just like to encourage folks, reach out. And I think most of you have probably already done some kind of personality profile at this point. But if you haven't, I strongly encourage you to do that. That will help you, get a good baseline of finding yourself. One of my favorites is the Strength Finders. And again, they did that session in Women Mentoring Women. And I remember getting my result back, and it had this big thing across the bottom of the page that said discipline. So that's my strength. Discipline is my strength. No black and white, or no gray, it's all black and white. It's strictly discipline. So I kind of laughed at it, and I sent it over to my husband. And I said, does this sound about right? And he sent it back to me with bigger letters that said 100%. So you got to learn who you are and embrace that, and then learn to, I don't necessarily think that I have to change for anybody, but I do think it's important for us to learn how to adapt and to be flexible where we need to be flexible, especially in the workplace. Because before I learned how to do that year or two before I got promoted, I was miserable. I was depressed. I was making everybody around me miserable. Just because I was so rigid in, I didn't want this move. They didn't ask me if I wanted this move. They don't care. They're not teaching me how to be a good leader. And I just couldn't get past that. And I think it is because of my internal wiring to be so disciplined, So, and it was hard for me to acknowledge that, because I know this is a strong group of women here. We all strive for perfection. It was hard for me to admit that I was that strict. I was the person that I never wanted to be. I mean, bottom line. And I didn't want to be like that. So I spent some time working on myself, and just trying to learn ways to be more flexible in the workplace. And I hope, as I've transitioned from that career into this endeavor, I hope that will carry over with me and help me be a better coworker than maybe I was in the past. So that's a little bit of my story. And I didn't know if any of you have questions or suggestions, because I'm always willing to learn more as well, or comments, or maybe something I could have done differently, could have done better.
Dana,
Whatever.
I have a comment. For anybody who hasn't taken strengths finders, it used to be called strength finders. It's just called strengths now.
Okay.
By Gallup. It's a Gallup assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And Dana, I took it in 2013, and now if you take it, it's like a 35-page report, and it's like awesome. So it's really, really great. But what Dana left out is that although her biggest strength was discipline, which you want to learn to lean into more, there are some blind spots with discipline that were tripping her up, like not being flexible, etc.
Oh yeah.
Discipline is one of the best strengths. I mean, it's the greatest gift, but there are some blind spots, and those are what you want to watch out for. And if you take the strengths assessment, the blind spots for each strengths are in the report. So you have some awareness. A lot of people, like Dana, knew she was doing this, but it took her some time to admit it. A lot of people don't even know
Yes.
that where their strengths can be weaknesses. So it is a really good starting place.
Yes. Thank you for
Mhm.
that. And
Mhm.
also, we hear throughout our entire career about how our strengths are our backsided weaknesses. And that is, I appreciate the fact that they put that they're calling them blind spots now instead of weaknesses, because I think for people like me, that just burns that much deeper when a personality like mine hears the word weakness.
Yes.
So,
Weakness.
yes.
Right. Because
Thank
you're
you.
all about not being weak.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
No weakness. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I actually did the Gallup assessment this year. And in addition to like having that in the report, they followed up like periodically with emails after for a few weeks after I'd taken it, with like almost lessons for each each of the high and lows of like not just like a here's what your blind spots are, but specific things you could do to address them. So it is, yeah, it's the new version is very cool. I also recommend.
Megan, I love that you highlighted that. So the reason I know so much about it right now is because I'm running a pilot within JP Morgan of like a small group of people I'm coaching. And we utilize that tool to kick off like the coaching process.
Mm-hmm.
Because unless you take action on the report or the findings, it's not that great of a tool, because you read it and you kind of forget it. It's in the back of your mind, but unless you take action and try to live into your strengths even more and utilize them in what you're doing, then it's not that great of a resource. So the thought is that if you're utilizing your strengths in the workplace, and if your manager recognizes your strengths in the workplace, then you're going to be a more engaged employee.
Yes. And I also think with that, I think the point that you made, Stephanie, that it doesn't do us any good if we don't act on it. That goes with the self-awareness, getting to know yourself, getting to know who you are. And I mean, it's hard. For me, self-discovery was painful. I mean, because in my quest to be perfect, it was a painful process. And when I took this Strength Finders test, I did have to look at it and go, oh, wow. When you do these things, you really look like a big old B word, and you don't really want to look like that. So I do think it's important for us to have a growth mindset when you take these personality tests. You got to be okay with what you get, and you have to be open to trying different things. And I mean, you just got to be open to, I don't want to use the term change, because I don't think that's appropriate. Because even when I took the DISC, that's another personality test, I took the DISC 3 different times throughout my career in law enforcement, going, okay, I know I'm going to be a better person on this one. I know I'm going to be a better person when I take this one, but it's the same. Yeah, I mean, it's the same. So I don't like using the word change, because we are who we are, and I think we should embrace that and be proud of who we are and what we have to offer. But at the same time, we got to learn to be flexible. If you can't just be flexible, like I can't, I'm not happy-go-lucky, fly by the seat of my pants. I can't do that. So we got to be open.
Danna, you alluded to this when you first started talking about not being really kind of recognized as a leader, largely being in a male-dominated industry. But I think every woman deals with that. And
Yes.
One of the helpful things to me early on in my career is I took some leadership training, and they were talking about how for women, there are no good archetypes for women leaders. And it really hinders us, because you can't be aggressive and focused. You're a bitch. There's not even the language around women being leaders. And so I think it's that kind of thing. We're doing the exact same things as men, only better, and not being recognized or promoted for that. And I think it drives us into more of those behaviors of, okay, I'm going to be more disciplined. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to bear down. And it really, and then of course we're constantly getting better and better and feeling more and more insecure about it, because it's not having the same outcomes that some man with one half the experience and half the drive can do. And I think it's knowing this, being aware that this will happen and not letting it get you down, to keep pushing past it and to be flexible. You just need that understanding. It's a form of self-awareness that you can be able to push past it.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point too, Mr. That's a great point. And also the completely lost my train of thought. You were talking about how, there's this little thing. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys agree with this or not, but there's this little thing called implicit bias that I think that we are, I don't know that we'll ever get past that. I don't know.
You all have probably heard about the quiet quitting and the definitions behind quiet quitting. Have you heard about the quiet firing? And so quiet firing is when you are passed over for promotions, when you're not included in meetings that you really should be included in. When I heard the definition about quiet firing, I thought, oh my God, this is what's done to women all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. It's almost like it's intentionally designed, well, one, to subjugate us, because we experience that everywhere, but to keep us in our place and to not make us as motivated and not, keep us even in the workforce.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, we need to be talking about this.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point, because I think at the time that I experienced the anger and the frustration and the whatever at that particular point, I was not self-aware. So looking back on it, I kind of kick myself, because I say, well, they got exactly what they wanted. They moved me out, and I just went away and hid for ever how long, those 2 years that I was just so mad and so angry. In my eyes, I let them win, and I should have never done that. So I guess part of my goal is to keep somebody else from making the same mistake. You should keep driving, just like you said, Ms. Deborah. Keep driving, keep pressing, and don't let them get you down like what I did.
However, Danna, that could have been your time of flexibility, because that wasn't who you really were, but you may have needed to do that just to have the opportunities that would come along later and not be permanently sidelined.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, that's a good thought.
We had someone have to jump off early, so she just wanted to say thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
Very encouraging. Well, we also had a
I'm
question.
gonna ask my question, because I had darking bogs. There you go. I had some barking dogs, so I typed it in.
Yeah. do you
But
wanna-
Danna,
Okay.
I'm curious if your career shift from law enforcement to vet tech has challenged you to flex in similar ways or different ways. Not that both are not carrying capacity jobs. It's just a different level of empathy and caring from animal to people.
Right.
So I'm curious how just how you're experiencing that right now.
Well, thank you for asking. I think I'm still in shock mode right now from the job change. But not, you talk about somebody who doesn't like change. So I went from 27 years of law enforcement in a male-dominated field to a medical field that's composed mostly of women, including the veterinarians. I've only met a handful of men who are veterinarians. So yes, it has been very challenging for me, which makes this talk that much more fun, because I can see how the flexibility needs to be and it needs to work, and the things that I need to do to try to stay in that zone for me to be successful. So yeah, it has been quite challenging. Yes, thank you for asking.
I have a question, actually. I loved what you said a couple of minutes ago about the growth mindset, the growth potential mindset. And I know that when we have a fixed potential mindset, we tend to focus on what we can't do versus what we can.
Yes.
It's only on what we're already good at. My question really is like, did the growth mindset, does that come naturally to you, or is that something you had to shift to? And you're saying, yes, you had to shift to it. So the question then is like, what kinds of challenges or obstacles did you face in having to work to shift to a growth potential mindset?
Oh goodness. I think my initial challenge, Megan, my initial obstacle was just admitting that I did not have a growth mindset. You know, I'm not the one with a problem, they are. You know, I'm not the one that's doing wrong here. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm fine. So I think my biggest obstacle was looking in the mirror and saying, discipline is a good thing, but it's also a growth area. So that to me was, you know, until I made up my mind, that was, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Dana, I have somebody close to me who's a very disciplined person and also is not great with change. That person needs to have like other areas of their life really regimented so they could deal with the change that comes like in the workplace. And if those practices don't happen for whatever reason, say they wake up late or they have to drive a child somewhere after school, or then it's like a mess. So I'm just wondering if you, first of all, have you put like, do you have a morning routine? What is your afternoon routine?
Yeah.
You used to work out a lot. Like, are all of those things still happening?
They are, and I'm very much that same way. I know things aren't going to go perfect at work, so I try to make home as routine as I can. So along with this new job thing here, I still don't have a routine, and that drives me crazy. But you know, typically I would you know, get up and go to work every day and then work out, and I'd work out on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays and run on Tuesday, Thursdays. Yes, that was very regimented for me. But now I'm still working on getting a routine for this new stage in my life. And it's been 9 months and I'm wondering when it's going to fall into place. But I'm kind of thinking it's not going to be till I graduate. But with that, you know, it takes a lot of self-talk on my part for me to be okay with changes along the way. I'll give you a perfect example. I'll tell you another story. I got up, this was Wednesday morning. Oh, Sharia and I had a meeting. I had to cancel my meeting with Sharia. We were going to Zoom. And I got up Wednesday morning and started on my homework. And I had all of my stuff on the kitchen table. And Nathan comes in and he goes, I got to be on a Zoom in 6 minutes. And I said, well, it looks like you're going to be late. I thought you were going to the office. And he goes, well, no, I'm not going to the office. I thought I would do it here. And I said, you mean here, like where I'm sitting? And he goes, yeah. And so, he said, I got 6 minutes. And I can't tell you how many ticks my blood pressure went up, but I thought I was going to lose it. But I didn't. I just sat there for a minute and just, I had to do a lot of self-talk, and this might sound crazy to some people, but
Oh, it doesn't. It
yeah,
doesn't.
I mean, I just really had to talk to myself and just say, he's not doing this on purpose, even though the night before I asked him, is it okay if I leave all my school books on the table here oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine with me. So just tiny things like that, still set me off, and it takes intentional self-talk and me still working on my growth mindset to appreciate the fact that that was not intentional. And that he just decided in the last hour or so that he probably didn't really need to do a job interview in his work office. So he decided to do it at home. And, it's just things like that. It's still to this day a struggle for me, because that's who I am. That disciplinarian is who I am, and I'm not going to change that. I've just got to learn ways to flex.
Dana, the only thing I would say is you're not going to change your personality type,
Right.
but you can do things that can help you kind of soften the edges, so your blood pressure doesn't go through the roof. You may still be irritated, but you're not going to explode. And if you're missing your exercise, that is not going to help. So if you could put some sort of, I understand your afternoons are probably not consistent because you're in school, but if you have even like a small window in the morning to put some sort of like practice in place that includes some sort of silence, some sort of movement, that explosion, you might not have to do so much self-talk.
That's a great point. Yeah. And I remember early on in this new adventure in veterinary technology, I had gone back to my counselor and said, my nerves are shot. And she asked, are you still exercising? And I'm like, well, not as much. And she said, you have to exercise. You cannot. Yeah. So I have made a deliberate attempt to work my exercise back into my routine. But some days I miss.
Sure. Oh yeah. Some days everybody misses.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
And that is that's been a great saver as well. I do have mornings where I'm here alone, and I do have devotion time, and I may go for a run, and that you can tell it makes a difference. So
yeah. Huge difference.
I think it's even more important for people who are high strung like me to have some kind of like that. So,
yep.
What is this question?
A really good question on the chat. What advice do you have for people with close relationships with highly disciplined, non-flexible people?
Yeah. There's this book called Who Moved My Cheese? And I'll be honest with you, when I discovered this, and I came when I started working close to people with the same type, because the police department is full of these personalities. So when I found somebody that I thought would benefit from a copy of this, I would just say, hey, we're climbing the leadership ladder together. This book's been really great for me. So give it a read, see what you think. And then have some discussion on it. Maybe that will open their minds. Yeah.
The other thing, I have someone close to me who has a similar thing too. He's read that book probably a million times, but he needs more, he needs more intervention than that. He has got to meditate every morning. He has to, he doesn't have a choice. When he doesn't, he is a disaster to live with because he's so rigid and so irritable.
Yeah.
He has to meditate. He does yoga every morning by himself, and then he still has to go work out after work. And if those things don't happen, I am like tiptoeing around here, like there's going to be a bomb set off.
Well, see, and I think I have been that way for the majority of my life. But at that point in my career, you know, it just felt debilitating to me. And I didn't want anybody or anything to have that kind of control over how I felt, you know? So I think it was at that point, I just got tired of being miserable. You know, I got tired of being hateful. You know, I got tired of being not flexible, just completely rigid. And I think at that particular point in my career, I just decided it was just exhausting to be like that. And I couldn't imagine what I'm doing to the people around me. So, and that's where the empathy comes in. And, you know, one of the questions we pose in our marriage seminars is, how would you like to be married to you? You know, so you give that a thought and you go,
That's a great question.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to share as well. I do like to carry this over into my personal life with my personal relationships. And I do think some of my relationships have improved over the years, just with the fact that I've tried to be a little bit more flexible and not so rigid with my time and with my life. So
I have to, I'm a retired engineer, and my exposure to leadership was very brief. 18 inspectors on 3 shifts, and I hated it so much that I quit Westinghouse. Told the quality VP I quit, but I had 30 great years in their research lab. And when my boss wanted to retire, he had asked a couple of guys if they wanted his job, and he said no. So I said, I think Ruth Bishop is interested in going into management. She retired as a VP.
Yay!
And I also recommended a young man who had done an associate's degree, but was continuing his engineering degree. I recommended that they go ahead and put him into that engineering role. He is the manager of a major section of Northrop Grumman. So don't overlook opportunities to help somebody else.
Absolutely.
In the right place.
Absolutely. Always. Yes, always. And I can't stress enough the impact that these women here in CWLI have had on this journey, on this personal journey. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank each and every one of you for that, if I haven't told you already. So
Christy had to jump off, but she said she was
saw that.
looking forward to hearing your story all year. So
thank you.
it takes a lot of courage
Thank you.
to change for yourself.
Yeah.
This may or may not be related, but I think because it's still in my head, because I saw it doom scrolling on social media last night. But Jamie Lee Curtis popped on my screen and said something about the rule of 5, which kind of seems to be woven into all this. And if y'all haven't heard it, I hadn't heard it. But whatever is in front of you, is it affecting you for 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 weeks, 5 years?
Wow.
And when you can kind of process it that way, like Nathan getting in your space, you know, and then like just look at it from that perspective, because that's not something, like when she said it, I was like, that I always laugh. I get real frustrated when I hear Dr. Phil moments, and it's like, it's really obvious. I should have known that already. You know, it's like, how did he get a career out of saying the obvious? But then it's like, well, I wasn't thinking about it, to be fair. So,
Right.
But that to me was really kind of an interesting thing, because as currently a parent of a middle schooler who is testing me in all the ways,
Yeah.
maybe I need a little bit more of that check-in of like, this is right now. This is 5 seconds right now. Is this 5 more minutes of this? Is this whatever this choice is, or this thing, is this 5 years? I just thought that was really interesting. And I don't know, just as we're talking about this, and again, to your point, Danna, my favorite thing about this organization is just the sharing of this path that we're all on in different ways. I just get so much out of that, and I'm so grateful for that. So anyway, that was in my head.
Yes. And I will encourage you, Karen, on the personal side of flexibility. My stepchildren taught me the most about being flexible. I think that I think that's a great strategy. I had not heard that when they were growing up, and it may have helped. But yeah, I think the flexibility and the kids / stepkids, whose ever children you are around, can encourage and help build flexibility. Yeah.
Well, that leadership is in all the places. It's not just in a work environment.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
It's in all your spaces. So
yep, it sure is. Yep.
My nose is starting to turn red. I might have to go in my
I know. I'm so sorry. Thank you for sitting in the cold with me.
Don't be sorry. It felt good until just a second ago.
If it makes you feel any better, it's 62 degrees in my house, and Nathan's not ready to turn on the heat yet. So, so does anybody else have any questions? It's been great conversation with you ladies. I miss you all.
Thanks, Danna. This was great, and I'm so happy for your career change.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sounds like a dream.
It's been great so far. I told Stacy, or not Stacy. Boy, I'm going completely blank. I was talking earlier about I thought I was going to be late because I was at my clinical, and I had to catch some urine for a specimen for our lab tomorrow. Sharia, I'm sorry I forgot your name.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So yeah, it's been great. It's just been great. It's been a great change. I've really enjoyed it, and no regrets. So yeah, thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Danna.
Thank you, Miss Stephanie. It's good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
All right, I guess as our wrap up, definitely thank you so much, Danna. We are
Thanks, Sharia, Stacy, whatever your name is.
Yes,
Tracy.
honored to share your journey with us. You are an inspiration to many of us, and I think
thank
we can all
you.
agree, at least everyone who stayed on, that you exemplify what it means to be a leader, to have leadership adaptability and resilience.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Sharing.
Yeah, it's just important for people to know, with personalities like mine, it's not always easy. You know, you got to work on it. So yeah. So thanks for letting me share that.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone else for taking time out of your day to be here. We'd love your feedback. So I did put in the chat here a brief survey. So if you'll take a couple seconds to fill that out for us. We will be having our final leadership study on November 15th on the topic of teams. But she's also going to kind of walk through all the objectives that you learned earlier this year to help you put into practice the support you gained along the way and just everything. So it's going to be kind of all encompassing on the next leadership study. So hopefully you will attend that one. And if you missed anything today, I'm going to go ahead and send out a link to everybody so you can watch this recording back. And I've got a PowerPoint I'm going to upload on that as well for you guys, just to show the FLEX acronym. But yeah, other than that, everybody, I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for attending today.
Thanks, Sharia.
Bye.